And the film you're about to see really does highlight how critical it is to pass the CARE Act, to provide children in agriculture with the fundamental protections that they deserve and so desperately need for a better life. That for children in all other industries. And I know it's really hard to believe, because when you think about what the bill does, simply provide the same protections to children in agriculture that are in our child labor laws for every other industry, you'd think it was a no-brainer. But the first time I've introduced this bill was in 2001.
And it's still critically important today to our economy and to our future. But the simple fact is that agriculture has evolved over the years, and what may have been appropriate in the 19th century is no longer appropriate in 21st century America. It's an exceptionally important industry, but it's not an industry that ought to be an exception from the child labor laws that apply to every other industry in this nation. Why this film is so critically important is the other evolution of agriculture in our nation is that too many who are in the position to influence policymakers have no idea how their food is produced, how it ends up on their plate, on their table. They don't have any sense of the hard work by hundreds of thousands of children and their family members leads to putting that food on their plate. Harvest, the film.
They chose this subject and brought it to me, and I was able to help them raise the money for this film to get made, and left it in the great hands of our director back here, Robin Romano, who's going to introduce the film tonight to you guys. And I'm just very, very grateful you guys are here. Thank you to MALDEF today and last night, and all of your support, David Damian and Tom Sines, and Dolores, who's here too, Dolores Huerta, who introduced me to the world of farm workers, and who I owe a lot to as well. But thank you so much, Congresswoman, for just being a champion for us and for the CARE Act. And we always knew we wanted to use this film as a political tool. We always knew that. The great thing is it turned out to be such an amazing story of these children that you'll see, and that everybody will feel empathy for. And with that, I'm going to introduce the director of our film, Robin Romano.
Now let me say a few words about the film. The 20th century German philosopher Siegfried Bonhoeffer said that the measure of any moral society is how it treats its children. And I think it's fair to say that in America today, we are still failing our moral duty. The Harvest is an American film, and the children in it as American as you or I or anyone else in this room. And yet, as many of you heard this morning at Representative Roy Ball Allen's press conference, through an antiquated loophole in federal law, hundreds of thousands of children under age 18 are working in agriculture in the United States, toiling in the fields at far younger ages for far longer hours and under far more hazardous conditions than all other children who work. In short, the children whose lives you will share tonight suffer from a fundamental deficit of protections. In the eyes of federal law, they are separate and unequal. And for too many of these children, farm work means an early end to childhood, long hours at exploitative wages, and risks to their health and sometimes lives. Just as Edward R. Murrow's great television report, Harvest of Shame, shocked Americans by chronicling the struggles of migrant farm laborers 50 years ago, The Harvest lifts the curtain on the uncomfortable and unconscionable fact that today, by some estimates, as much as 20% of the hand-picked food we eat is picked by children. And you will see that today the same reality of poverty, desperation, and racial exclusion still exists in the American fields of plenty. Edward Murrow asked 50 years ago if it was right to let the people who helped feed their fellow Americans labor under conditions that wronged the dignity of man. Tonight, I ask you with this film, is it right to let our children, American children, give up their hopes, their dreams, and their childhoods to feed us while they go to bed hungry? Tonight I ask you to look at the lives of these children and ask yourself, is this the America I want? And now, one last thank you, and that would be to Dolores Huerta, who because without Dolores and Cesar Chavez, none of us would be here tonight. May I introduce to you Dolores Huerta.
Not that they don't exist for some undocumented workers, but we have an employment insurance for the farm workers there. You know what I mean? The child labor laws in California, they're not always enforced, but they're there, they can be enforced. So the reason I'm saying this is because I think that it leaves us with a feeling of hopelessness. And it is not hopeless, but it takes organizing those workers.
People don't know what I have to do to get my kids what they need. I'm not talking about toys. I'm not talking about, a bike. I'm talking about clothes. I'm talking about things they need.
We need the money, so I'm just like, Mom, I can go help you. And I'm just like, okay. I make like $64 a week. So I think I'm helping her with that. I wish I would have a different life for my kids, a different living for them. I don't think any mother would like to see their kids working. Of course.